Welcome to another Bandology interview. Bandology is a Canadian nonprofit dedicated to more music for more kids via education, collaboration, and community.
Hi everyone, my name is Lucas Redwood and I am the music manager with Bandology. I'm here with Lou Bartolomucci. How are you doing today, Lou?
I'm great, Lucas. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Lou is a freelance musician and has played with many different musicians such as George St. Kitts and George Olliver. So Lou, can we start off? Can you describe a bit about when you first started playing music?
Well, I was told that I had a guitar in my hand when I was 4. Not that I played it, but that was sort of the first thing I heard from my family. That at 4 years old, I was given a guitar by an uncle in Italy. He had sent me one. I didn't really come from a musical family, but this uncle, I guess, said, "Okay, let's send him a guitar." So that's my first, and I don't remember that, of course, but that's my first story that I was said, "Hey, you started playing when you were about 4." But I actually didn't really take it seriously, until much later. So I was kind of like, strumming along with open strings for a long time. Yeah, but I had the feel of the instrument, though.
Nice. And so were there any difficulties during the start of your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Many. I don't know where to start. Well, the thing is, it was obvious that I really liked music, but I never thought it was possible for a long time, like even through my high school years. Let's go back to the time when I was a kid, I guess. I guess my parents recognized that I had an ear because they would see me gravitate. We had a neighbor that we would visit all the time, and they had a piano. So I spent most of my time during our visits with our neighbor on the piano, just banging away, whatever. And but they never really sort of took that as a sign that, hey, maybe this kid's a musician, because they didn't know. They were immigrants from Italy, and they came from a poverty kind of background. So in their minds, I want them to be a doctor, a lawyer, that kind of stuff, right? Because they thought that music wasn't something that was really tangible. So, and they didn't know much about it. So they just kind of let me play along, and okay, eventually he'll find his way, kind of that kind of thing. And then I went to high school, and then things changed a bit.
So you're also involved in a tribute band for Tower Power called Oakland Stroke. Can you talk a bit about how you became involved in this ensemble and your experience being a member as part of the ensemble?
Wow. Well, it dates back to 2014. Lou Pomanti, who's the leader of the band, right? I didn't know him personally at the time. Kind of knew him we knew of each other from a periphery kind of standpoint. But a common person was Tony Carlucci, who's I've known for many years. He's a trumpet player. He's also heads a band called Brass Transit, which is like a Chicago tribute band, right? So Tony and Lou, I guess, were kind of in partnership with this new venture, Oakland Stroke. And Tony was the one that recommended me. So our first rehearsal, I remember, and I knew most of the guys in the band. There was a couple I didn't know, but I didn't know Mark Rogers on bass. I knew of Lou, we'd finally met. Steve Heathcote on drums, I knew because I'd played with him for years. And then the horn section, I knew most of the guys. I'd either played with them in other bands. So it wasn't unfamiliar with playing with these guys, but now we were going to do this music. And I remember the first rehearsal just kind of getting goosebumps because, there's one thing about playing Tower of Power, but when you start to hear the bass player playing it, right? And that's what kind of said to myself, I went, wow, because he plays like Rocco. He can play, he kind of has that style, right? So that gave it the sound. And from that point on, everybody was great. Everybody played really well. First rehearsal, just, looking at the charts. But it was the bass player that kind of I went, wow, this not only is a great collaboration, but it sounds almost like the real deal because of that bass player. Incredible. He plays like Rocco.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then
it's always nice having a really, really nice, solid bass player.
Well, yeah. And that music, it's pretty much fundamentally key. Well, it was him and Garibaldi that kind of, set the tone for everything else to happen. It was the groove and everything else. But, and Mark, and then of course, Steve picked up on it. And then the four of us, the rhythm section, we kind of looked at each other and went, wow, this is doable. This is really doable. We just got to like do a lot of work and put a lot of time into it, rehearse, do a lot of homework at home, learn the stuff, which leads me to my next point, memorizing the music. That took a while. Mark was the first one to get off the book. And he inspired the rest of us to kind of get off the book. The horn players were the last ones because in their case, it's kind of hard because they have to remember a lot of lines and they come in and out all the time. So the rhythm section kind of plays all the way through. So you get a sense of form, you get a sense of memorizing the music quicker than you would if you're coming in and out, when you got to lay out and wait for the vocals and then know your parts. Whereas the rhythm section has to play from start to finish. So there's more of a sense of, okay, it's going from here to here to here. It's a little bit easier, I have to say. And then, so consequently, the horns were the last to get off the book, but the rhythm section was the first.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be kind of challenging to memorize, especially with a band so intricate as Tower of Power.
Well, yeah, and then I had the added, well, three of us in the band, myself, Lou Pomanti, and one of the horn players had the added responsibility of doing the backup vocals, right? Because that music has backup vocals. So that presented a further challenge, not just to memorize the music. So, I mean, I remember the first gig, I think I was reading something. I didn't have it completely memorized. I read the odd chart. But then I realized, you know what? No, you got to memorize the whole thing. Because if you don't, you're too busy looking at the book, then remembering your parts. No, man. It's got to be like a whole one thing kind of choreographed approach. So first thing, of course, you learn the music, you learn the mechanics of all the chord changes and then the form. Then we had the added thing that Lou, he opened up some sections. He didn't play it exactly like Tower of Power. He says, okay, you know what? That's too short. These songs are like 2.5 minutes long or 3 minutes, the original ones, right? On the original recording. So he said, let's open up this section. Let's open up that. Let's do that here. Let's do that. So more memorization, right? More work.
We love more work.
More fun, but more work in order to get to the fun part, right? Yeah. So it was a lot of like hours and hours. While I would start with this, I would start just with my, I had all that music on my iPhone. I'd go for walks and just, put the buds on and play it over and over and over again. I can't tell you how many times I listened to What Is Hip. Every little nuance, every little part, just really try to get inside the music. And that takes hours.
Oh, yeah.
Then sit down and play along with the record, okay. At first look at the chart and then it's okay, throw the chart away. Right away, throw it away. Try to remember it. Then there's the added part, of course, of changing the music. Okay, now we're going to medley this song into that song, or we're going to try that. So it wasn't just about learning the actual song. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a mountain of work.
Absolutely. That's super exciting, though. I bet once you get it down, it sounds super tight.
It sounds tight, yeah. You got to run it down a number of times by yourself, and then in rehearsal. And you don't want to look bad because you're around all these really good players, so you got to hold your end up all the time, right?
Yes.
It was pressure at the same time. I felt it anyway. I felt the pressure. Well, I always had to have my eyes open to Lou because he's looking at him, making sure we're on track. He's conducting, we're going here, we're going there, that kind of stuff. So always, and then trying to, at the same time, play my parts as best I can, sing my parts in tune, right? All that stuff. So it was an interesting process for me, I got to say. Mm-hmm. And one where your brain is like, by the end of it, you were drained. You were absolutely drained. Like, oh my God. But you get to the point where you know the music well enough that now you're free from it. You're free from the constraints of learning it, and you just execute the part. You just hope for the best. But
for sure.
The thing that I'd always be more worried about than anything else, once I got the music memorized and my parts memorized, was if anything technically would go wrong, my cable cord or something, because you can get distracted by so many things, right? You can get distracted by the sound, Lou, look at me, are you too loud, are you too soft, all that stuff. You can get distracted by a number of things. And the thing about that music is that you got to really focus to the point where it's just because there's just too many things going on and coming in and out. The horns are now playing. Okay, you got to remember that, all of that stuff. You're constantly engaged,
Absolutely.
I mean, not unlike any other form of music, but this particular case, because we didn't play often enough and there was only so much rehearsal time, that in order to really play this music well, you have to put time into it.
Yeah. So you are so you are a member of the faculty for the Merriam All-Star Jazz Band, which is where we actually met.
That's right.
Can you describe a bit about the Merriam All-Star Jazz Band and how students can become involved?
I've gotten really fond of that program. Absolutely love it. I mean, it took a while because at first, and I remember even in the days when you were there, I think, just trying to figure out how best to serve it, because you're dealing with students, you're dealing with kids at different levels, right? So you got an Ethan, which is like way up there, right? And then you got other players that are so Ethan now is part of the staff, as you know. He's become a staff member, and having him there, I got to say, was really, really important. Just he kind of set the bar for the kind of playing that is well. He's a cut above most students. He's really incredible. So he was a real good, important person to have there, just so that as people kind of measure up all the time when they've got a strong player in an ensemble. Everybody kind of like listens more. He sets the tone, right? So having him there was great. The program itself is a blast. And we're kind of it's evolved. It's evolved over I've been there 6 years now. I think this is my 6th. I think so. I've lost track of time. It's evolved in the sense that we now have 3 distinct ensembles. I think at first we would have just one large ensemble, but now we've got 3 distinct ensembles. And COVID kind of demanded that too, that we couldn't be in the same room with a lot of people. So that meant, okay, three ensembles. And so that kind of focused it even more, right? So now you got an ensemble like 5 or 6 people. So you can really focus on skill building and learning. And so we all go about it differently. There's 3 of us. There's 4 of us, actually, Ethan too. But Ethan, I get the luxury of having him in the ensemble with me. So it's great. Calvin has the one ensemble, Mike has the other one. So it's kind of like, in terms of age and order, I guess Mike has the more junior kids. Calvin has the next level, and I've got the senior kids. So I've got the kids that are most advanced in terms of their development at that point. So it's a treat.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I was only involved with Merriam for a year, and it was such a great opportunity to learn from Lou and Mike and Calvin. They've just got many experiences and skills to add.
I've learned a ton from Mike and Calvin. I got to say, Mike probably is one of the foremost educators that I've ever met. He really knows how to teach. He knows how to get kids engaged. I've learned a lot from just watching him. He's learned how to work with the young ones, because that's something I've never really done too much of. Like, I taught high school way back in my career, way early, for a couple of years. I was at a high school level, so I never really taught young kids until recently. And Mike is like probably the best I've ever seen of teaching that age group. I mean, he can teach any age group, but in particular, that age group, he's really good with that. So just how to communicate, how to inspire, how to get ideas across to make it fun, but also to make it learning, and not to overwhelm kids with too much information. Just give them the right things at the right time so that there's a steady progression of development, right? He's really good with that. Really good.
So how have you adapted as a musician in light of the pandemic?
Well, I've been fortunate. I'm kind of, I'm in the latter part of my career and life, I guess you want to say. I'm the older guy in the whole thing, right? Especially in Merriam, but also just in my own career. I mean, not that I'm not going to say my playing days are over, but I'm not playing as much anymore as I used to. Oakland Stroke has some gigs coming up, I'm hoping. So that will be my kind of, outlet to play. But I've been involved a lot in writing and producing. So I find myself quite busy doing that. And part of it was my development throughout many years of just learning how to be a writer or learning how to compose. So now I've got all this unfinished work that has to be done. Besides, other people are calling me to help them with their projects. I've got plenty to do from morning till night, probably, God willing, if I live that long, but for the next many years, I've got lots to do. And regardless of where it goes or where, successful or whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is I've got a lot of music to learn still, and I've got a lot of music to finish. So my days are full. So the pandemic, yes, it affected me in the sense of not being engaged with my fellow musicians on a daily basis or whatever, weekly basis. But I'm busy and I'm thankful. Not gonna
No, that's good that you're able to stay busy and that you've got some unfinished
Yeah.
projects that you're hoping to maybe work on eventually.
I'm also fortunate that I have a wife who's still working. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, not rely solely on that, but what I do at home doesn't always generate a lot of money, but occasionally it does a bit here and there, so doesn't matter. I got something to do, I love music that much, and there's so much to learn, so much to check out. It's like every day I get a feed on my phone. Oh my God, check out this scale, or check out this set of chords, or look at this and that. It's just endless.
Yeah.
So no time to get bored.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Now I understand why some guys are, have had a hard time. I understand why people, of course, especially if you're in the live scene, that was taken away completely. Think about it. I mean, and had it been earlier in my life, like had this happened when I was, say, in my 30s or 40s, like I'm in my 60s, right? Later 60s. But had this happened much earlier, it probably would have devastated me, right? Like say in mid 30s, 40s, when let's say you got all these tours coming up or all these playing gigs, and all of a sudden shut down to nothing. Think about it.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
So now I tell the kids at Merriam, I say, you know what, you're in a good position because you're still not out there. You're still, you're in here and you're learning, and now's the time to get those skills together, because this was the last year when, we were really shut down. We're starting to open up now, but during the initial stages of the shutdown, I was saying, look, guys, this is a gift in one way, because look at all this time you have. Get to it. Learn the stuff. See, I'm a guy to learn what not to do. All these years in my life earlier on, I wasted a lot of time. All right. And that's something that I'm trying to instill in everybody. Don't waste time. In other words, get involved. Like just step by step, bit by bit, you'll learn. But do it in a steady progress, right? It's just like, when a teacher tells you, okay, I want you to practice this. Okay, so kid goes home, practices it. Then he doesn't touch it for 5 or 6 days until he sees you. Right? You probably heard me speech, right? What's the point of that?
Yeah.
No, you got to do this every day. Even if it's 20 minutes, half hour, whatever time you can, but do it every day. Why? Well, it's obvious, and yet it's not obvious.
Yeah.
What's that, of course, and you as a drummer, any physical instrument, the hands, they've got to learn muscle memory. They've got to get there. So how do you get there? It's like an athlete. He's got to practice. He's got to run every day, right? He's got calisthenics every day. Same thing with music. It's tough to watch kids that are unfocused because, and I understand why, because they got other interests. But if you're in music, if you want to learn it, you got to do it every day and steady every day, even then. However time you can put into it. And I tell these kids now, you know, I was given a couple of beginner students this year. Interesting. That was never done that other than way. So, and it's a different mindset when you're teaching beginners than when you're teaching kids that, you know, that have been playing a while, and it's a different mindset altogether. So where do you start them, right? This is where Mike is way better at this than I am. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Because I'm so involved in the content, right? And I have to now remember the teaching part of it, right? Mm-hmm. The two have to be in sync, right?
Yeah.
The content has to be taught at the right time so that you've got to motivate these kids, right? You got to motivate them so that they'll want to practice, right? And how do you do that? It's quite a step-by-step thing. So I had to kind of relearn that. I had to go, oh my God, this isn't as easy as it looks. It's not. Teaching a beginner, how do you do that? Mm-hmm. So step by step. But then, you know, my wife, who's a teacher, she says, don't overwhelm them. Don't give them too much. Don't give them too much information. You know, you're going to put them to sleep. You're going to bore them, right? Don't give them all this theory. Don't just make it fun for them. You know, so there's a point to that, right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You got to have balance of getting the information across, but making it fun. Well, you know, I'm good at getting the information across, not so much at making it fun all the time.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
So we've talked a bit about this, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts about, at Bandology, we talked a lot about the value of music education and how it provides lots of transferable skills. So my question to you, Lou, is why is music education important to you?
Oh, wow. It's huge. On many levels, you know, for the most part, most of the public doesn't really understand music per se. They really don't. Let's be clear. They know what they like. It makes them feel a certain way. It hits their emotions. So it's a good point, because for years I was a bit of a snob because I was so into music, and it was. But you have to sort of get outside of that sometimes. You have to kind of look at the world at large and go, okay, well, not everybody's going to be a musician. Okay, so you can't expect everybody to get this. You can't expect, it's just like me, if I walked into a room and I knew, you know, they're talking about medical science. I mean, hello, it's a foreign language, right? So for most people, music per se, I'm talking about the mechanics of music, not the listening and the emotional part. I'm talking about how music's put together, chord scales, all that stuff. For most people, that's like way over their head, right? It is, because they don't know. I mean, they're busy doing what they do. So being involved in music gives you a sense of an aesthetic, a deeper sort of understanding of what makes us human, right? I think on that level sometimes. So, because how can you get two people to like the same thing? Often they don't, because music is very subjective, right? So what one person thinks is good and another person is not, you know, that's obvious, right? It's just liking and most of the time it's hitting people on an emotional level. So that's number one. I think it's important for that. I think it's also important the fact that when you engage in music, it does something to the wiring in your brain. You know, you have to connect the dots, and your brain works in a different way. I don't know all the science behind it, but I've been told that it's really good for that neuro, all the pathways to really connect, because you are giving a lot of sensatory stimulation to your brain, and then of course your heart that's the emotional part of it. So you kind of connect the two. So music's important for that. It's important to just for society at large. I think it just brings people together. There's lots of things. I think it's highly important. I think it's very important, but not everybody agrees. Depending on what you're into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Lou.
Yeah.
All right, so we like to end our interviews with a little set of fast 5 questions.
I feel like I'm on a talk show.
Well, that's kind of the idea here. All right, let's start off with the first fast 5 question. What is your favorite movie soundtrack?
Whoa, well, I got many, but I'll tell you a couple that stuck in my brain. Ennio Morricone, The Mission. Really, the score is like tremendous. I don't know it off by heart, but boy, it's like, wow. There is a movie way back called Death Wish, and Herbie Hancock did the score. Really cool. The first Death Wish. There was a remake of it, but I think this was the one with Charles Bronson, and Herbie did the score, and it was pretty incredible, right?
Yeah.
So those come to mind, and some of the Star Wars movies are really good. John Williams, Hans Zimmer, another one. So I don't know if I have a favorite.
They're all good. Yeah.
They're all
nice.
A lot of film scoring, but the bit that I've done, I've been in, in rooms where I've done the odd cue for somebody's film and stuff. It's really challenging.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of got to get outside of your box of knowledge. You have to use your knowledge, but get outside of how you normally do things. Mm-hmm. So when you're writing for a film, you got to write the right mood and make sure that it's not obtrusive to the scene, but it complements the scene. And, there's lots of stuff to learn about that. And I'm not trained enough in that, but the bit that I've done, I found it fascinating. Very much so.
Cool.
Yeah.
What is an instrument you wish you played?
That's a good question. I play the guitar, I play the piano, a little bit of bass, and very basic drums, but I can keep a beat, sort of. I think I'm probably one of the horns, one of the like a sax, sax. I think sax probably. Like some of my good friends are sax players.
Yeah.
And so there's something about that instrument. It's just because it, as a melody instrument, it really penetrates. I find the sax is just, and it's in that range where, but I've recently heard some things that really knocked me out, like the bassoon, for example. It's a really,
oh yeah.
I heard the other day, I heard the Rite of Spring, and I think that opening line, I think is a bassoon. I think it's beautiful, right? So there's all these other instruments that I'm discovering the beauty of them through listening to orchestrations, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's another sort of other big field of orchestrating. I've done some of that in my own little studio in a MIDI kind of way where I had to orchestrate a piece. So you start to get in tune with what instruments do, and the thing is, when you have MIDI instruments, you're basically got a fake orchestra, but think like the instrument. In order to get close to what the part would be, you got to go, okay, what would a flute player play here? So you got to kind of go back into your listening of what you've listened to in your life. How does a flute sound? What do they typically like to do? And like that with all instruments. So then if you approach writing that way, you get closer, you know what I mean? Even though you're not a
yeah, absolutely.
Like I recently I had to play this thing called the oud, which is an instrument, Middle Eastern instrument, right?
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
So I had to listen to some recordings, and then I ended up being able to download this fake instrument called the oud, right? And somehow got it in my platform. And then I had to figure out, okay, what does an oud player do? It's got all all this kind of stuff in this track, right?
Yeah.
So I think learning that, how each instrument functions and what they typically, how they articulate, that's important. How they articulate, that's a whole other study, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're into film scoring, that's something that you got to kind of get a handle on. How does each instrument behave? How do the range of them, all that knowledge helps you in writing a score, you know?
Mm-hmm. How about your dream vacation spot?
Oh, Hawaii.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I've never been, and I've wanted to go for a couple of reasons. One, I want to. I watched Hawaii Five-0. My wife loves that show, and of course, it's filmed there, right? So the scenery is incredible, right? I wanted to go there, but I also am fascinated by the whole Pearl Harbor thing.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to go see that. I'd like to go see the Arizona. I mean, it's a very emotional. That's where, of course, Pearl Harbor. The war started, World War II, right? For the U.S. They were attacked, and so that's where they've got this entombment of a ship there that's still intact, right? It's incredible. I'd like to. I have this thing that I want to do that, and then I want to go to, of course, some of the islands and just enjoy the sunshine,
Nice. How about favorite concert you attended?
Oh my God, lots of concerts. One thing I've been very lucky in my life. I've kind of been. Part of it is because of my age, but I've seen some memorable concerts.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to really date me, okay? I was 11 years old. I saw the Beatles.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, and it was at Maple Leaf Gardens. I was 11 years old. I was very young, and I happened to be with a family friend who was older than me, kind of took me like their little brother kind of thing. Mm. And I kind of have a vague memory of it because I remember them. We were way up in the grays in Maple Leaf Gardens back then, and all I saw was all these girls rushing the stage and the scream. I would hear the beginning of the song, and then it was just one big constant scream after that.
I see the clips of those. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I was there. I was in that room at the time. They did it twice. I think I was there in '65, and then I saw Jimi Hendrix live.
Oh, nice.
That was another experience. No pun intended, because he had an album called his band was,
yeah, right.
So I got to see that. And it was like I can't remember, 14. I mean, I was allowed to go. Somehow my parents said, okay. I went with a friend again, a couple of friends actually, and it was pretty memorable. So that, and then of course I saw Chick Corea many times, Herbie many times. I saw Weather Report, but not with Jocko. I saw Weather Report with Victor Bailey, the sort of the later incarnation of that band. I did see Jocko's band though. That was incredible. Word of mouth. What other member? I saw the Stones. I saw Stevie Wonder.
Oh, nice.
That was great. Pat Metheny a number of times. Oh my God! At the old Ontario Forum, 20,000 people with the circular stage where the stage would rotate. 20,000 people up on the hill. It was incredible. Metheny, it was phenomenal. I got to meet Pat, which was great. Very briefly, just shaking the hands. Got to meet Chick very briefly, but just an awesome day doing that, right?
Yeah.
I was at the Blue Note in New York, and I got to see him and Gary Burton. They were doing a duet, and after the set was over, I got to go upstairs, and everybody kind of one by one were going up, and so I said, "Hey, let's take this advantage here." So yeah. I've seen great live music in my life. I've been fortunate that way,
That's awesome. Yeah, Tower of Power. Nice.
And way back, not just recently, but way back, I saw them at the El Macombo, and one time they came without Rocco. Rocco couldn't get across the border or something, some kind of immigration. So Chester Thompson, who was the organ player, played left-hand bass and bass pedals, and incredible. I mean, you knew Rocco wasn't there, but at the same time, he was phenomenal. Chester was like ridiculous. So that was a memorable concert. Just lots of stuff over in my time. Cool. And Toronto had a really thriving jazz club scene back in the 70s and 80s, right? So I got privy to a lot of heavy jazz players at George's Bourbon Street, even locally, George's Spaghetti House. There was a club upstairs from George's Bourbon Street. I saw Wynton Marsalis Quintet. That was incredible, right? With his brother Branford. And then I saw Bill Evans, the great Bill Evans. So I got privy to a lot of live music, and I'm blessed with that. It's great.
Awesome, Lou. And last but not least, what is your hidden talent?
Oh boy. Well, outside of music, not too much.
Can you do one of those things where you like, you know?
And I regret not learning how to fix my car. Like learning just basics, mechanics, right? How to change this, how to change that, like not getting stuck, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that and handyman stuff at home, I'm useless. I can hammer nails. I can, do some very basic stuff, but I wish I had that skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good skill to have. All right.
And one more thing. Here's my advice to young.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know. I say this because, like again, I'm a guy to learn from what not to do sometimes, not what to do, but how to avoid pitfalls. Okay, and one is this: in today's age, right? Multi-level skills. I stress that. Now, unless you know that you're like a monster at your instrument, like I'm telling you, like you got to be like, and you got to look at yourself honestly and go, okay. Yes, I'm going to strive to be the best I can, but that, you're not exactly Chick Corea. You know what I mean? That's you kind of. Chick Corea was an absolute prodigy, right? So we all got to look at ourselves realistically and go, okay, where do I fit in, and how can I best serve what I want to do, right? And I had to look at myself in that way many times throughout my life. What can I do, and what is attainable and what is not attainable. Okay. Now, not to put limitations, that's not what I'm trying to do here, but I'm trying to put realistic goals and realistic aims. So what I strive to do is, and I did this because I fell into certain things. Sometimes your career, you just fall into stuff because you meet somebody, all of a sudden, okay, that gig leads to that gig, leads to that, leads to that. Kind of how it works, how it worked for me. Multi-skills, learn how to read, most important. My regret that I didn't study classical piano, because that's where you get your reading together. Reading is really important, but learn how to adapt and learn how to do different things. I've had to learn this later in my life. I wish I had learned this way earlier. Would have saved me a lot of headaches and a lot of aggravation, but learn the computer, learn how to program music, how to basically record it. Okay, so recording is the fastest way to learn. Record yourself and listen back to yourself. I learned more from doing that than a lot of other things. So recording, learn how to write charts, learn how to do a number of things, and you'll always work. You'll always have something to do. People will need your services. That's important. Unless you go for that one thing where you're a monster. Ethan's multi-skilled, but he's a monster sax player. I've had him in my studio. I've heard him, listen to him play, and he's 20 now or 21. And look out, he's a monster player. But how many Ethans do we have in a circle of people we know? Think about it, right? So the rest of us have to kind of find our way in the business and our way in this field we call music. There's many things to do, not just one. you know. So if you learn this, you learn that, you just learn a bunch of different skills. And then you hone in on those skills. You can't work on them simultaneously all the time because it's a lot. Look what I do. I play guitar, play keys. Right away, I got to practice those two instruments and try to keep them up. You know, along that, I could spend 24 hours doing that alone. But if I did, then I wouldn't be able to write music. I wouldn't be able to be on my computer. I wouldn't be able to write charts, all of that. So the point is, you got to like allocate your time right. Okay. And don't waste it like I did way back. Just really get down to it and allow yourself some time off too. When you can't go crazy, you know, because you can be pretty extreme about this too. But if you build skills slowly but surely, step by step, and you have multi skills, you'll always work and you'll have your services will be needed.
Thanks, Lou, for that advice. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and thank you for taking the time today to do this interview. It was great to hear about your experiences and catch up with you. My
pleasure, man. It's been a blast catching up with you.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care. See ya.
Thanks for joining us. If you like what you heard, you can learn more about our organization at bandology.ca, which features information about music education, advocacy and research, and our Play a Gig and Bandcamp programs. Follow us on social media for more videos, performance, and interviews on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.